think we might get started, everyone. It's 7 o'clock, so let's get rolling. We have a few people here. I have a few apologies. I have an apology from Councillor Ethan Wyatt, and I have an apology from Councillor David Hughes. I'd like to welcome members of our community, our business community, council members and council staff to this session. I'd also like to welcome Louise Drummond, Chair of the Gawler Business Development Group. Welcome, Louise. Karen Braum, Executive Officer for the Gawler Business Development Group, and Leonie Boothby, CEO of Regional Development for Regional Development Australia, Barossa, Gawler Light and Adelaide Plains. Welcome, Leonie. Oh, and a board member, Kevin Fisher, and board member, Gary Iremonger. I'd also like to acknowledge the land that we gather on this evening is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. So this briefing session has been convened in accordance with Section 90A of the Local Government Act for the purpose of hearing from the Gawler Business Development Group regarding a potential management model for the Business Innovation Hub if the group were to take on the hub's management, and to brief council members and our community who may be watching online, welcome if you are watching online, and on issues relating to their decision-making function. This session will be used solely for the purpose of information sharing and not for the purpose of debating issues, building consensus positions, or otherwise discharging council's deliberative and decision-making functions. So this is for asking questions and sharing information. It is not for making statements, long drawn-out statements, because that is potentially somebody could misconstrue that to be a debate. So members of our community are encouraged to listen to the information provided to council, but refrain from general conversation or commentary that may cause disruption to the session. Should the session become disruptive, the person presiding, which is myself, over this session shall ask the individual to leave, but I don't think that will be a problem this evening. There's no set agenda and no minutes will be taken during this session. To limit disruption to the session, can I please ask people to turn their mobile phones on silent, please? If you have a mobile phone, please put it on silent so that it doesn't ring during the session. Either switch it off or switch to silent or vibration alert mode. If you do need to take a telephone call, please take it outside. Don't do it in the middle of the session because it's quite disruptive and it's quite disrespectful to people who might be speaking. Should there become a requirement, I don't think we need to go in confidence tonight, so I don't think that's an issue. So I'm going to hand over to who? Karen Braum. I don't know who's speaking because no one's told me. So is it Louise? Is it Louise Drummond? Okay. So you've got a presentation?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm actually not doing the presentation, but I just wanted to do an introduction.
Okay. No
Karen is the one who will be going through everything, but obviously either Karen or I will be happy to answer questions.
Okay.
The Gawler Business Development Group has always been extremely interested in seeing success in this space in the Civic Centre. It's important that the ratepayers of Gawler actually get the benefit of the Civic Centre and see everything that could possibly happen in here. To that end, we did put in a tender when that was first opened, the hub was first opened. and disappointed at that stage, of course, that we didn't get the opportunity to really talk in full about what we were going to do. And the ideas that we have, I believe, are extremely viable. One must bear in mind that the board is made up of business people. And so we bring a wealth of knowledge and experience and skills to whatever it is that we do. And we're fortunate that it's such a broad range of people on the board. So there's great diversity to offer there. So tonight we see ourselves as having the chance to really find out from you what is really important and what you're looking for and how we might be able to fulfill that. I think, unfortunately, in the past, the management of the hub has not really been focused on the needs of Gawler and the Gawler people and the Gawler ratepayers. They were a business that had their own interests first and foremost. And yes, it was a great opportunity for them, but this is an opportunity for Gawler. And that's what we really want to focus on. So I'll hand over to Karen to go through the workshop or the presentation, and then we'd be very happy to discuss it further.
Good evening. Now, David assures me that this little clicker is going to work, so let's see how we go. So firstly, we're here tonight in response to the elected members' request to GBDG to prepare a presentation for management of the Business Innovation Hub. In order for GBDG to provide a presentation that addresses the needs and expectations of both the council staff and the elected members, there are a number of questions to be asked. GBDG has not been provided with adequate information to date to determine that. The board sees this session as potentially the first session of many between GBDG, council staff and elected members. So if you're happy to commence a discussion, let's see how we go. Let's get it started. Okay, doesn't want to play.
Is it on? Is it turned on? You've gone. Oh, what's happened? It's gone off.
There we go. We're back. Okay, so firstly, we would like to ask the elected members, what is it the council wants from the hub? And I'll go through just a few of the things that we thought you might actually respond with. Oh, well, it's doing its own thing. There we go. Job creation. And by that, we mean nurturing business growth for members to become employers. Income, a return on investment. Is this something that is required? That's a really important question. We need to know if you want a return on investment, or is it utilisation that you're looking for? Utilisation so that the level of all spaces are used as more regularly and we get as many people in this building as we possibly can. Or do you see it as a stepping stone for businesses that might be starting off as new businesses and then growing to an entity that can go and move into a commercial space or a semi-commercial space to start with? So what we would like to know too is, what is your priority? What is it that you actually want to see us doing for you? Do you want a business incubator or a co-working space? They are very different. Or do you want all of the above? Once the GBDG has answers to these questions, a way forward can be planned. However, there are further points that must be considered. So could we just very quickly open it up right now and see if anyone has any comments on the points that we've put up there, what it is that you as elected members would like to see from the hub?
Well, I'll start. I think job creation, I think utilisation, I think a stepping stone for businesses, for startups. I'm not particularly concerned whether it's a business incubator or co-working space. I think I want people in there and working together, but also if it was possible to do a social enterprise, something for the good of Gawler. And I think that, you know, some of those businesses could be utilising some of their skills to provide good for Gawler.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. And there could also be mentor programs where an established business can assist a smaller business, a newer business, to actually achieve their goals and tell them the things that worked for them when they started and what didn't work and why. So it's always really helpful to have those people helping you out. So anybody else?
Anybody else want to add anything? Sorry? Oh, okay. Yep, I'll go around the table and then I'll go to Nathan. Anybody want to speak first? Just put your mic on. Yep.
Sure. I'll just quick comment first that obviously we're all keeping an open mind during this session, but I think one of the things which is really important is that it's not just commercial, like it's not just extra space that is taking away from somewhere else in the town. There has to be something extra there, and it could very well be any one of those things on there. But I think the part which differentiates it and makes it something which is something that's an offer as part of the civic centre is that there's something beyond it just being a space for businesses to come in and pay rent for. But there could be, as I said, any one of those things, as long as it's that bit extra.
Thank you, Isaac.
Anybody else around the table?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess, and I was not on council when this went ahead, but my understanding from a member of the community was to, again, it's to do I guess along the stepping stone for businesses, so that local people who are interested in creating, starting and maturing a business have some local help. Before this started, I mean, the nearest, as far as I know, was, you had to travel to Playford. So this is about local people helping and supporting other people to get into a business situation. I concur with Councillor Solomon that it's part of the centre. So it's about, again, it's the focus of in the main street, so that it's very visible. People are welcome to come in. It's easy for them to make the initial approach and find out what's here. So it's a bit of a very visible presence, but it is about helping local people from our community to provide services back to the Gawler community, and hopefully if they're successful, might be even beyond. So I guess in a very general form, that's what I'm thinking at this stage. But again, I'm open to listening and learning, and perhaps tailoring this as we go along.
Cody? And then I'll go to Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, so I think echoing a lot of what was said already, if all we wanted was, I guess, a co-working space that, broke even or that sort of thing, we wouldn't need to have this discussion, because that's already functioning in the Innovation Hub as it is now. Getting people in for rent is, it's there, but it's not really meaningful in a civic centre sense, rather as just a rental space sense. And that's not what I guess we initially wanted from it. And it does make me question, if that's all it's going to be, would it be better to just, get rid of the idea of an innovation hub and use the space for the youth or something? So I would like it to be something, if we're going to be using it in the civic centre, something that is functioning as some sort of community level.
Councillor Koch. I'll go to, do you want me to go to Deputy Mayor? Okay, yep.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, my view is that it should be an incubator, and I think it should be able to bring in people who are entrepreneurial by spirit, and really smart ideas. And we could be a smart town where we actually draw in people who are innovative ideas, who can use that space, because you've got the what's it called, the gig city.
Yeah, gig connection.
Yeah, the gig connection. I mean, that's really rapid. That's really valuable.
It is.
And I think we need to be able to work on that. But I think an incubator would be good, just to develop those businesses. And I think we need a process where we actually move businesses along, and they don't just sit there forever and a day.
I think that's a really good point, that we need to move businesses need to
because-
move in and out.
Because
when they're ready.
it is
Yeah.
a huge advantage for a business to be in that space.
Yeah.
Middle of town, you've got the gig city, you've got everything, huge advantage. But everybody needs a bit of a go at that, and you bring businesses in, you develop them, and then they move on. That was my view right from the start. But I think at the moment it's sort of stopped a bit.
Yeah.
Mm.
Deputy Mayor, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess my answer would be all of the above to some degree. Listening to my colleagues, I don't disagree with any of those ideas. I think Councillor Koch touched on it really well, and I think that was something that was the model that was put forward originally, and unfortunately that hasn't really worked. Now, I see a potential of a mix. So those incubators also learning from established businesses and being able to get a network in there that is promoting that B2B sort of interactions, I think would be a really, really good thing to be able to promote, and not too dissimilar to what the Stretton Centre is doing just up the road in our neighbouring council. We talk about job creation. I think that comes organically on something that's successful. Income, I mean, I look at income, and if we talk about the return on investment, I think a good thing to go out to our community and show is transparently show, look, we might be a break even here in council business, but the return on investment comes into our local economy. And we need to ensure that's not just a buzz sentence. We're actually wanting to be in a space that we can measure and show that annually, because then it can justify that turning around, that turnover. And then when we do want to look at growth, we have that modelling package, that data ready for it. So again, I think a stepping stone for businesses is covering that incubator stuff, and also that co-working is covering that B2B, which is why my answer is all of the above in some way or another. I know that sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but it really, not one marketing of the incubator program or business innovation hub has really taken off and made this successful. Here we are. I mean, we know that. So I think it's time to look outside the box a little bit and sort of go, all right, how are other councils doing this? What's working, what's not? And then see how we can implement some of that.
Thank you. I'll go back to you, Karen.
Yes, thank you. Some of the points that the elected members have made and yourself, Mayor, have made are exactly what we wanted to hear, because it allows us to be able to put more of a focus on what it is that we think the hub should be, because you've actually ticked just about every one of the boxes that we've built in the last few weeks when we've been trying to determine what it actually should be. And, an innovation hub is not what it is. So being able to move forward in a different direction is absolutely fabulous. So let's continue. So what is it that GBDG proposes? So we're just going to give a very, very brief and broad outline of some of the things that we could look at doing. So option one is that the town of Gawler and elected members would need to be involved, and they would need to agree to engage GBDG as a contractor that would manage all aspects of the space. For the space to be successful, it needs to be almost a separate entity so that it can actually do what it needs to do to tick the boxes for the elected members, for staff, for the residents, and for all the businesses and potential businesses in the region. We need to, so Town of Gawler and elected members need to contribute a yet to be determined annual fee to assist with covering additional costs like resources and operational costs that would be incurred. The Town of Gawler staff would need to vacate the space. Why? That allows GBDG to maximise desk offerings to potential clients and also look at a complete restructure of how it's set up at the moment. Town of Gawler and elected members would need to be responsible for utility and internet costs unless accurate costings for the space are able to be determined. Without an accurate cost, it's impossible for us to decide whether it's something that we're going to be able to do. You would also need to incorporate the meeting rooms, a future smart room and the cafe area into the space. We do have ideas for all of those spaces, which will be, expanded on when we go a little bit further. So what does GBDG propose? Well, what we would need to be doing is to provide all current GBDG services and restructure as a complete business. A complete business centre, that should say. Rather than calling yourselves an innovation hub, it should be a business centre, something like Gawler Business Centre, where it encompasses all of those things that we looked on slide 1. We would need to restructure the space to enable more desk and office spaces, improve the kitchen facilities and provide supplies, coffee machine, toaster, milk, sugar, tea, coffee, the basics that should be in a business centre. If you visited the Stretton Centre, or if you visited the Adelaide Hills Business Centre or Salisbury when they had one in the back of the library, they all had those things in place and they all make it successful. They all build towards its success. We would need to add more tools. We would be looking at putting whiteboards up on the walls. When you're having a meeting or a discussion with the people you work with, sometimes all you want to do is jump up to a whiteboard and start to storybook something on that board to explain things. We would want some sort of soundproof pod. There needs to be an area in that space where you can be quiet, where you can be talking, but no one can hear you. We would need a TV/click share system, something similar to what is down in G3, so that that gives people access to more than just the one small space in the corner, the small office in the corner. We would be looking at establishing a user-friendly online booking system so that no person has to manage the bookings. It'd be similar to that that's used in other hubs, and it's for all areas and it updates immediately. So any available space is instantly live and promoted via a website. That would enable to simplify the system that you currently have. We would want to incorporate a business resource centre, toolkits, templates, all of those sorts of things should be readily available on a website. Someone just goes straight to the website. I need a plan for a 30-day business plan, a template for it. Bang, there it is. It's the simple little things that should be there that aren't. And GBDG would want to collect and retain all rent and other income, depending on the answers, of course, to the questions on the previous slide. So that's just one of the things that we'd be looking at. Why would we call it a business centre? So a business centre is a space that can provide serviced offices. Your needs can be taken care of, your needs as in new businesses, reception and admin services, a registered business address, a mailbox, a virtual address, and a parcel delivery area. If anyone has ever worked in a shared office environment, I worked in one, I used one, I should say, in the city for a number of years, and all of those things were readily available 15 years ago. It's something that should be automatically there. A business centre is a co-working space, a home for your business, a dedicated desk, a day desk, or a hot desk. It's a business incubator, a place to grow and learn. It's a series of meeting rooms that are available to you easily, again, going back to the online booking system. And it's an area where you will get business development, on-site coaching, mentoring and support. The toolkits and resources, everything that you could possibly need should be available in that centre on the day or within a very short period of time. Town of Gawler would need to engage GBDG under a fee-for-service contractor arrangement to manage limited aspects of the pub. This is option 2, sorry. If the Town of Gawler want to keep some control, they could engage us under a fee-for-service contractor arrangement to manage limited aspects of the hub, things like attracting new members, marketing the space, and benefits of working from that location and delivering all current services. The Town of Gawler would then retain all the rent and incur all of the costs. So not too dissimilar to what you're already doing, except you don't have to staff it. And so where to next? The board of the Gawler Business Development Group look forward to working with elected members and council staff to further the discussion on how best to use and manage the Business Innovation Hub, meeting rooms, cafe space and future smart room. So as I said, that's just a very broad outline because we needed answers to those questions to be able to put together something more comprehensive.
I've got a question.
Sure.
The cafe space, what are your ideas around that?
The board has had quite a few discussions probably over the last, I'm going to say 4 months. And a number of different ways that could be utilised would be as a training centre for people in the hospitality industry. It could be an area where businesses who have grown too big for the kitchen at home, but aren't big enough to go into a commercial kitchen space, may hire that space to produce their goods that they're going to be selling. It could be a space where we would be doing training of only hospitality type people. There's lots and lots of different ideas that could go into that space.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Some questions at this stage? Yes, Councillor Solomon.
Just quickly, to the chair, there's been some discussions in board meetings and there was sort of an allusion to it there about the naming of the space and sort of marketing. I guess what scope is there to improve the kind of businesses that are coming in based on that marketing, given that not every business might see themselves as a sort of innovative.
Yeah.
It's very, like attracting people other than the stereotypical finance bros, like that kind of like going beyond just the innovation hub and marketing to other businesses.
Yeah, particularly if you're looking at startup businesses, tags, names, labels, they all can be quite scary because they can say, "Oh, hang on, I'm just starting a virtual admin business. How is that innovative?" That could scare people away. It can also limit the type of people that you actually get applying to come into the hub because they think they have to be some sort of science or technology, some sort of STEM type business. And that's not true. But the label innovation or innovative can actually scare people away. Not just that label, any label you put on there. So that it needs to be quite generic, which is why we just thought Gawler Business Centre. It says exactly what it is.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just picking up on some of your points, Karen. So I believe if we were to move to a model where we have an external manager, i.e. the Gawler Business Development Group in this example, I think it's a fair and reasonable request to keep the utilities as separate into that space, and that goes with printing. Everything outgoing, I think we really need to capture, because again, it gets back to that return on investment and transparency, and making sure that we're clear on what this is costing us, i.e. the ratepayers, which to be honest is also the Gawler businesses of our town in some way or another as well. And we need to be very clear on those outgoings. So electrical wise, I think we've been having some minor discussions about, well, we need to do a separate meter and everything. Is that something you would recommend as well, to say, yeah, look, we sort of agree, you would have to do a separate meter. We would have to look at how we monitor the printing and really give us that standalone model?
I might put that to David Barrett.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, David.
So through the chair, yes, Councillor Shanks, in a nutshell, you're correct. The only other way you could actually apply a utilities costing would be using a retail leases proposal of net lettable area. So you take the square meterage of the facility and apply costs for the entire facility across the total square meterage of the facility, and then use the mathematical calculation to apply that to the floor space of the hub. That's the lease's way to go. If you want an exact number, you'd have to have separate meters, because that's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
In terms of printing costs, etc., at the moment we can determine them based on the printer that's in there, that's Town of Gawler printer, which we get through our quarterly billing cycle. If the Gawler Business Development Group was to take on full responsibility and take on management of all that resources, then that'd be a separate cost, I assume, to them anyway. through different arrangements with a different printing company or supply company or the like.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I hope that answers that question, Councillor Shanks.
It certainly does, and it's the very similar dialogue that we've been having as council. But I just wanted to put the same idea back to Karen. Like I feel like there was a bit of a dialogue there on, look, we would, you know, to actually say we'd gone that, we would need to separate it. So that to me says we'd rather you separate it so we can make it as transparent as possible. Am I right in that assumption?
Karen?
No, not entirely. It's more around having some figures to work by, and at the moment we don't have those. So it's an option, but it doesn't have to be that it's separate meters. You know, David has already provided one option that is accepted, you know, in a lot of buildings. So, you know, that's not something that would be disagreeable for the Gawler Business Development Group. It's just like all of the aspects of proposal 1, 2, or if we go to 3 and 4, it's just going through all of those as two groups working together and trying to come up with something that actually ticks the boxes for all of us.
Yeah.
Yep.
Councillor, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Karen, for the options, 2 options. Option 1, I'm sure it was your intention, causes me some concern. I think it's a little, and that's probably exactly why you put it up. I think back to the reason and the philosophy behind the Civic Centre, and it is a civic centre for everyone. It's got a number, I think 4 or 5 distinct functions within it. Option 1 seems to me almost it becomes a business centre. And I would need to be reassured and have it teased out. So the comment about, you know, removing staff and things like that, just I think I need to see much more detail about that idea, because we've got a youth centre, we've got the library, we've got heritage centre, we've got the cafe, well, the meeting space that is around the cafe. We've got a whole range of things. While we want to improve perhaps what we've got at the moment, we don't want it to be dominated by a huge, humongous business centre. We want them all to work. In one sense, they're disparate entities, but in fact, what I guess from my point of view, I want to see activation. I want to see people in there, and it'd be hard to tell what somebody's in the building for, because there's just lots of people in the building. They might in fact be going to 3 different places. So I guess I need more detail.
It is a place for everybody, and I think that the cafe space, that's why I asked the question, because I just wanted to tease that out. So Councillor Kosh, you had your hand up.
Yeah, look, Mayor, look, I suppose I'm a bit confused about tonight. I actually assumed that the board was coming here because it was an unsolicited bid or proposal that they were going to provide tonight. That's what I thought. Like they did provide a proposal many years ago, and we did talk about that when we actually moved the motion. We actually talked about it and whatever. I'm just concerned if we start talking as we are now, that there's almost a tacit agreement between us and the board that we'll actually go into some sort of partnership.
Well,
that's my concern, that this is what it looks like to me, like from tonight, where it's leading.
I'll go back to the paragraph that I read, which was solely for the purpose of information sharing and not for the purpose of debating issues, building consensus positions or otherwise discharging council's deliberative and decision-making functions. That is not the purpose of this information sharing. It is about sharing ideas. There is no intention to go into a business relationship. This is about sharing ideas, and the deliberative decision-making functions belong in a council meeting or a committee meeting. And so, you know, that is not what we're here to do tonight. And I just want to make that really, really clear, just for your benefit and for everybody's benefit.
Just on that, I mean, the first section, I thought where we talked about the scope, those first 6 items, to me, was the scope of what we'd like there. That's fine. But then when we start moving into the other options, and then, you know, when we talk about, we'll sit down and talk and you know, look at things. I think that's starting to move into this tacit agreement that potentially this might happen. So it might put a lot of effort, the board put a lot of effort into this stuff, and we don't necessarily want to go that way. I mean, we are in a deficit budget to start with.
Yes.
You know, we haven't got any money. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
So
that's
to
right.
talk about a lot of these things, you think, well,
I think there's no harm in sharing ideas.
yeah, I know, but to me, sorry, the way the conversation is going, it's as if we're going to start talking about a partnership. That's what it sounds like to me.
Okay.
That's what it sounds like to me.
I'm not hearing that.
Okay, yep.
I think that we're just sharing ideas at the moment, and that's all it is sharing ideas and looking for, I guess, for a future vision for the Business Innovation Hub. I'm calling it that at the moment because that's what it's called. So I think that, you know, we need to be very careful, elected members, and Deputy Mayor, that we're not building a consensus position and we're not discharging our decision-making functions right here, right now. This is not what that's about. This is about sharing ideas. So I think we can continue the conversation without you know, saying that, oh, yes, we're going to do this or we're going to do that.
It's my concern.
So I hope that's
I'm just concerned, that's all.
Yes, no, I'm glad you raised that. Councillor Lorna.
Thank you very much. Do appreciate you guys coming here for with some ideas that you got. There's been a lot of people come up with a lot of ideas, so people are coming and complaining a lot. You're coming forward to put forward some ideas and getting some feedback from us, which is much appreciated. Through the chair, I'd just like to ask David Barrett there if we've actually looked at any, I'm talking about the metering side of things, any of the analytic devices that are available where you can actually, no?
Because the question comes to me and then I ask David Barrett. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll
go with that one, all right?
sorry, Councillor.
Okay, no worries.
So
basically there's analytic devices that can be incorporated, which I'm more than happy to take that offline with.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
okay,
so-
all right. David, do you want to provide any comment on that?
So through the chair, the short answer to Councillor Lorna is no, we haven't, because we haven't had a direction from council to change the operating model in any way to look at that requirement. So we wouldn't have done
You
it.
can take that offline. Yeah, you can have a chat at another time. Yes. Back to, yes, Councillor Solomon.
I was just wondering, there's obviously there's some other places that do similar things. I'm not sure if there's other parts you're going to talk about, but what are some of the other examples around the place that you're aware of that where they've achieved something like this? I mean, the Stretton Centre is one that sort of comes to mind.
Yeah, the Stretton Centre is a really good example. In fact, I've been having meetings with different managers of the Stretton Centre from day one when Dermot first went in the door, and it has just continued to build and build and build. And it's a very simple model, which is, and they also use, as I was saying, an online booking system, which really is looking at simplifying things instead of making things difficult for people to do. And as Councillor Hennessy was saying, it's a whole of Gawler building, absolutely. And the way the booking system works is they just walk in with their phone, take a snapshot of the QR code, and it doesn't matter whether it's Joe Bloggs that lives at number 3 10th Street or whether it's a business, they can book those rooms and it doesn't cost them anything. That's the Stretton Centre. It doesn't mean that that has to be the model here, but it's just a way of simplifying things and also reducing costs. If you have to have someone managing those booking systems, it makes life difficult. So that's what we'd be looking at throughout the entire operations of the centre, would be that we simplify everything that we possibly can to make it easy for the people using the centre, the people that want to come into the centre, and the people who are already there. In relation to Councillor Kosh, your comment, please be assured that the Gawler Business Development Group does not see this in any way, shape or form as any type of agreement. It's purely a discussion to say, what is it that you want? We do have some answers, but we need to be able to get answers to your questions. but we need to be able to get more information to be able to come back, as you were saying, with some sort of proposal. The proposal that we put up 4 or 5 years ago was against a tender. So we had all of the information in that tender that told us what you wanted. This time we don't have that, and we can't assume that you want the same as you wanted then, because the system that's been put into place hasn't worked as well as you've wanted it to. So hence the way we've decided to format this tonight.
So I might actually go across to Leonie Boothby. Hello, Leonie. And do you want to add anything at this stage? No, not at all? Okay. Cody?
Yeah,
And then I'll go to you, Deputy Mayor.
so a couple of things that, yeah, I agree about the name of the Innovation Hub not being quite suitable, you know, either in what we're currently doing or just in terms of the image that if I went into an innovation hub, I'd sort of expect to see, I don't know, virtual reality devices and, you know, that kind of thing, as opposed to, you know, just, you know, telemarketing or whatever, you know, like there's definitely an image of an innovation. I guess my question is just around just comparing to the status quo, I guess, because you talked about how you'd want to, I guess, I don't know, refit the building and that sort of thing. But in terms of like the Stretton Centre as an example, what is it, I guess, achieving at the moment that, you know, isn't being achieved, for example, already at the moment?
Quite simply, it's full. It's overflowing. Jared has only in the last, I'm going to say 2 months, restructured again. And a restructure doesn't mean, you know, knocking down walls and things like that. He's had a good look at his floor plan to be able to fit in another 16 desks, and they're full on top of the ones he's already had. He has a waiting list. We've discussed with Jared the possibility of us taking people who maybe live in the Gawler area who are working out of the Stretton Centre, moving them as an overflow group into this space, so that we form a partnership with them to say, okay, we can give you more space by moving some of those people out here, but we have to be comparing apples with apples or they're not going to come.
Deputy Mayor? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad that we touched on the Stretton Centre, because I was actually going to make some of the same points. I went for a meeting at the Stretton Centre myself last week and was pretty impressed with I guess the modelling and the proactiveness in. I think the 16 seats actually came in, to correct Karen respectfully, came in just before Christmas last year, but they filled up that quickly. And they're also they're desperately trying to keep 6 empty, because otherwise, once they're at capacity, there's the same problem again, and it doesn't actually promote that sort of growth. I don't mind the idea of actually partnering with a successful hub in being able to look at, how do we actually use that regional good news story to be able to facilitate that overflow. But you're right, we do need to offer have that similar offering if that's what we want to look at. As for the conversations tonight, I think this is a very good collaborative way to discuss, and this is merely us bringing in some people in the field to be able to go, hey, what do you reckon with this newly elected body, and start teasing out some of the ideas. I'm really enjoying the back and forth, and I think this is one of many more to come.
Any comments, Karen?
Yeah, I totally agree. It is, you know, for all of us, I suppose, it's a voyage of discovery. We need to figure out what it is that the elected members and the staff want, what it is that the business people who are already in the hub, what it is that they want, what it is that new startups will want. And you only have to go and have a discussion with some of the businesses who are working from home around the kitchen table with the dogs and the cats and all those sorts of things. And you'll be surprised. Some of them absolutely love it and don't want to move and don't want to expand, whilst others are just buckling because they've got nowhere to go and don't know how to do it. This facility could be doing everything that we've discussed tonight and much, much more. Believe me, we have got lots of things on our little storyboards that we've been doing, and you know, a lot of those will be able to come to the next meeting if we have one. I lost my train of thought there. Yes, the Stretton Centre is just one example of a partnership we could form, and not only would it allow us to put into place some of the things that that successful hub is doing, but also other hubs. The other thing it gives us is leverage when we're looking at funding and grants. You could be looking at a regional application and getting a lot more money to be able to do some amazing things within all of the centres.
There is, the federal government have just announced, what have they called it, David? What have they called it? Tertiary, regional tertiary hubs.
Yeah.
Did they call it peri-urban? I don't think they did. They called it regional and also suburban, outer suburban. And they haven't written the guidelines for it yet, but there will be money coming, and I think we have a good chance of getting some money that's for tertiary hubs though. Is that for tertiary hub? Yeah, that's for tertiary, sorry. It's for tertiary hubs, not business hubs. But there might be some money coming from business hubs, and I think having discussions with our federal member, Matt Burnell, is always useful, and he can feed that back up. And you never know if you don't ask the question. Councillor Hennessy.
Yeah, that seems a really nice segue into making sure that there is a presence here from the RDA, given the sensitivity in the community as to why we belong to the RDA and the discussion that's happened around that. I think it should be, and I know that there's a seat in there at the moment for a staff member, but I'd like to see it used to make sure that the RDA has a really strong presence in Gawler, and that it's, and we try to diminish the fact that it's a Barossa organisation, and it's much more regional. So part of the process, I guess, is to make sure that where we go from here, that there's a presence about it's not, it's local, but we have some skills and some expertise coming in from a regional support area as well, which also makes me question it from, I'm not very familiar with the Stretton, but I would imagine the Stretton is getting external funding as well.
It's not run by Playford? Is it run by Playford Council?
Yes.
Yeah, it's run by Playford Council.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's bigger. It's actually bigger than Gawler.
I think it's, sorry, through the chair, I think it's 2 full-time staff and 1 part-time now.
Yeah.
It may have changed just recently, but I think that's
it used
what
to be run by the University of Adelaide.
2 full-time and an intern.
Yeah. They got 15 million from the federal government, I think, to build it. And then, then it became a council facility. But I just want to back the RDA, because I know that Leonie's working really, really hard right across the region. And I know that through the roadmap that we did, you changed a few of the words, which really just broadened that regional focus, and I'd like to thank you for that. And I think you've certainly got your work cut out for you, Leonie. However, I think that you've really put some runs on the board as far as looking at a regional focus rather than a Barossa focus, and I think that that's been quite clear, and I've certainly noticed that, and I think that I think good things will come from RDA with you in the chair. Cody?
Yeah, so just, I guess, following up from before about the Stretton Centre, I guess the getting people in there is sort of the part that I'm the least worried about. I guess it's just more about the kind of people that we're getting in there. Are they, the kind of people who we want to be getting in there? Are they, are they successful? Like at the Stretton Centre, is there a model that corresponds with successful training programs or events or that kind, because that's the part of the, because the part of the current centre that's still functioning is the rent. Like people in there sitting at the desks, if we wanted more people sitting at the desk, we would just let more of them through. But the part of the model that was about supporting, you know, business growth and all that kind of thing is the part that sort of seems to have fallen through. So I'm just wondering about how you know, we could improve that if we went with a different model.
I think firstly, it has to be a complete change on the way that the centre is being looked at. You know, the guys who have been running the centre for the last, council have been doing it now for what, 12 months? No, it's more than 12 months, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's more than
Yeah.
12 months.
They are sort of in limbo. They're keeping things going and ticking the boxes that they need to tick to make sure that, you know, it is doing what it's supposed to be doing, because it is a running centre. There are people in there, so you have to look after those people that are already in there. And if you're going to start making changes, it needs to be done slowly. You need to have change, consolidation. You can't just say, right, let's kick everybody out because they've been here more than 2 years. You know, you do to a degree, you still need to have some anchor tenants while you're going through that period of change. So it would be a very carefully planned and managed change process. It has to be. Well, if you want people to like you, it has to be. So you could be ruthless and just say, let's empty it all out as of the 1st of December and start afresh. But that's not going to win you any favours, and people who might come into the hub after that point would be a bit worried that it might happen again. So it's got to be something you do slowly and progressively, and it needs to be that you say you want to see an incubation process. Absolutely, there should be an incubation process, but you can't run an incubation process so rigidly that you end up with an empty centre. To have 5 or 6 or even 15% of the seats empty isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it gives you room to be able to play with, to do different types of programs. If things have gone off a little bit, you introduce a new program that might draw people in. We've only got to look at the Tammy's Table program that we've been running for going into our 3rd year now, and the groups change continually. There's a constant number of businesses that are in those groups, and they might stay for 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, and then they leave the group because they've gotten what they needed out of it. It's the same thing with the centre if you're going to have an incubation process within it. So, but yes, you can, sorry.
Sorry, I might go to Deputy Mayor now. I think he's got his hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. Where I see the RDA fitting in too, which I'm glad Leonie's there. I can't see Leonie, but I am waving to you. If we did have a sort of model that looked or leveraged off of other successful hubs, or used it as a feed over, or however that looks, I'm not using the best language here, I know, but if we got a successful offering here in our Business Innovation Hub, imagine the RDA being able to provide those connections again across the Barossa Hub, you know, communicating with the Playfit, communicating with other business hubs around the place that aren't necessarily local government involved hubs as well. You know, that to me is that regional development, that partnership that I think we rely and appreciate that the RDA can actually help us achieve. We just need to be clear on what it is we need to, what it is we want to achieve. And right now, as Karen pointed out, we are in limbo. You know, that's why we moved the motion. That's why we supported the motion. So I think there's a place around the table. We just need to figure out what the shape of the table is.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that RDA is a critical partner, and I'm really keen to hear what Leonie's thoughts are. I know she'll probably reflect on this workshop, and I won't force you to make any statements now, but I think that, you know, RDA are a critical partner, because it can bring the region into Gawler, and I think that that's why we're in the RDA. That's why we're there, to capitalise on regional economic development. And I think, you know, yeah, RDA is a very important partner, but so's other business hubs. So we can, you know, there's all sorts of opportunity there. I completely agree with you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah. Karen, do you want to make any comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on the RDA question that Nathan had. We currently work with the RDA with the business advisory services that we provide for our members, rather than just the RDA running their B2B program. We, about 2 years ago, I think now, had a chat with Anne Moroney, former CEO, and decided that, you know, why are we trying to put together business advice when we can utilise that service?
Yeah.
So we refer the businesses to Zach, and Zach organises the coaching or mentoring that needs to be done, and we pay for it on our members' behalf. That's just one small thing that we're doing now, and there's so much more that we could be doing, particularly if we had this sort of a space to look after. Why wouldn't we go to RDA for advice and vice versa? You know, look at each other's strengths. With us, it's, you know, not local knowledge and ground level stuff. RDA, it's more big picture, but the two marry together really well if you work properly.
Yeah, and that's why they're such a critical partner. Yeah. Councillor Solomon.
Just reflecting back on, you know, on some of the conversation, but also on the original things which were up there in the presentation. The utilisation, as we get more into it, seems to be, it's something. If you just wanted people in there, you can get people in there. That's easy. But it's playing with the utilisation and that's the means rather than the end.
Yeah.
It's the means to get the outcome that you want out of it. And I think like some of that conversation has been around that outcome is making sure there's somewhere for businesses who maybe are home businesses, maybe haven't started up yet, to be able to go in there, and you have the right blend where there's some mentoring and things which are going on, which of course is the specialisation of the Gawler Business Development Group, is that mentoring and assisting businesses through that in that space, and using the blend of businesses in there to generate that outcome, which is a bit, you know, a well-established business who can move out into the main street or move out into Adelaide or move somewhere else in the town. And that's, I think, something as well. If you can, even if there's a cost to it, I think it's a lot better. It's a lot more palatable to the chamber and to ratepayers if we're saying, oh, there's a cost, but business A wouldn't exist if this hadn't have happened. And you can point to that something tangible. At the moment, I think that's where we're stuck, is where we're trying to figure out what the outcome we're actually getting from this is. Even though there's people in there and there might be a slight return, it's not generating income, and that's not necessarily what we want it to do either. It's about the outcome. But that's just reflecting back on those things.
Thank you. Any other comments at this stage? Deputy Mayor, do you want to make any comment? No. Any other comments from people sitting in the gallery? Louis. Oh yes, yeah. If you'd really like to, if you could come up so Nathan can hear you, because he won't be able to hear you without the microphone, I don't think, Leonie.
Yeah, sure. And I was just going to say, so RDA want to complement what the Gawler Business Development Group do, what council is doing, and through its economic development team, the facilities that you have. You know, I'm working with Playfood Council in relation to the Northern Adelaide Plain Food Cluster, for example. And so there's lots of different ways that we want to interact. we're going to do some work concentrating on creative industries, tourism, food, hospitality, primary industry. So in those sector groups, there's specific work we can do as well. Transitioning to net zero, there's going to be a whole bunch of things that are quite specific focus areas for us. Workforce in general terms and skills development. So I think that they're really, really keen to work with you guys in general terms, but also specifically around the space you've created that is an enabler of economic growth as well. So no matter what you do with that space, or you know who's engaged to do it, we want to work with both Business Development Group and Council just to make the most of that opportunity.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Leonie. They're really great insights from what the RDA vision is. And yeah, I think that the Northern Adelaide Food Cluster is a really exciting group, isn't it? And yeah, they've got some growers in Cuddler, and I know the Food Forest is involved in that. And yeah, that's a really exciting opportunity. And I think you're right that we've set this building up to be an enabler for economic development, and I think it can be. I think it perfectly can be with partnerships. So any other comments? Karen, do you want to make any comment at this stage?
Only one more thing that I think we need to say is the Gawler Business Development Group is not heavily resourced. And in order for us to be able to do this, as Isaac mentioned a little bit, you know, if it costs council a little bit of money, if you can see the benefits, then, you know, it's something worthwhile. The Gawler Business Development Group would not be able to do this without some sort of input.
Yeah, I think that certainly looking at opportunities for external grant opportunities and see if there's any business grants that we can look at, but also working with our staff in collaboration with RDA, Gawler Business Development Group and elected members, and I think would be a really great outcome.
We have to really be mindful as a group that, you know, we're here to meet the needs and service the needs of the businesses that are out there now, the businesses that are paying the commercial levy. So we have to be very careful that we don't take our resources away from that group and let them suffer in any way. We have to be really mindful of that.
I think they're very good insights. So thank you for those comments, Karen Braun. Any other comments at this stage? Deputy Mayor, you want to say anything? No, you're all good. You've got your hand up, Councillor Hennessy.
I hear exactly what you're saying, Karen. I totally understand from the Gawler Business Development Group where its focus has to be providing services back to the businesses. I'd hope that by perhaps looking at having a centre here in the main street, there might be some benefits for existing businesses, perhaps training, upskilling, that type of thing. But we all realise the situation that we are in budget-wise, and very mindful that all the residents also need to be comfortable with money being spent on economic development. So we've got this very fine balancing thing. I'm sure with some continuing ideas, we can probably work through that, but it's not going to be simple. Well, I think we all realise that. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Hennessy. Any other comments? If there's no other comments, I'm going to call this workshop to a close, and I'd just like to say thank you to the board members that came and observed, didn't say anything, and Louise Drummond, the chairperson, Karen Braun, and Leonie Boothby, who's the CEO of RDA. Now, hang on, I wrote it down because I can never remember it. It's too long. Barossa, Light, Gawler and Adelaide Plains, because I think it's important to say every single council area. So thank you, Leonie, for coming along, and Louise and Karen and Kevin and Gary. And thank you, Deputy Mayor, for beaming in, and all the elected members, and David Barrett, of course. So I hope everyone has a fantastic evening. Thank you.
Thank you.